Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. We have a very, very special show. The whole concept of projecting grandeur, it's about exploring, the what's possible and what lays, underneath and how you can manifest it and make it come out. And today's guest, Kijuan Amey, embodies resilience, determination, a U.S. Air Force veteran, a motivational speaker, a founder of Amey Motivation. But his life took a dramatic turn in 2017, and we're going to talk about it because he had a motorcycle accident that left him blind. And I'm so happy that he's here to tell us about his story. So, Kijuan, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Ron. I truly appreciate you having me here, man. It's just I always say I have to show my gratitude for people allowing me to speak on their platforms because, my story is not just one that should be canned and then retold by somebody else. You know what I mean? So, one thing I always say is, who tells your story better than you? You know, so
Absolutely. Well, good. Well, let's get into it. So, let's go way back to the beginning. Can you talk about your upbringing in Durham, North Carolina, and what inspired you at that point to join the U.S. Air Force?
Yeah, no, Durham is right now ever evolving, growing for sure. That's darn sure. We have some major tech hitters coming here, as we already had IBM, but now you got Google and Apple trying to jump over here into this Research Triangle Park area, and so there's a lot of money flowing through this area, man, and other businesses are trying to jump on with it. So this is a great topic for discussion, because when I was coming up, there was not that. It was so Durham was like one of those quiet places. Like you only knew about it if the NAACP, they knew about it, because there was a lot of this is where Black Wall Street started. So you have a lot of things that started here, with a lot of like people like C.C. Spalding and I forget his first name, Charles, I believe, but Charles Spalding and James E. Shepherd and all these amazing people that were here before I ever was born. Maybe even thought about, because that whole area where I grew up near, literally, I can walk to all the places that they were uh, pioneers in where I grew up from.
Yeah.
And we call it Hayti Heritage Square. That area is very popular in Durham. They're trying their best to get their hands on it, and I hate to say gentrification, but that's a word that they use, so it's in the dictionary, but they are trying their best to get their hands on culture, man. And we're fighting back. Don't get us wrong. Hayti Heritage and Phoenix Square, we're fighting back, but we have to fight harder and believe in our history. But then you have, places that you would go, and even since we have Fourth of July coming up with this episode, and um, Durham Bulls. For those who know Bull Durham, the movie, that's a real movie, by the way, about the Durham Bulls. Um, and it did put a little staple on that area. We used to go to the games all the time, and I loved going to those games. I still like them. Of course, it sucks because I can't see, so can't see what's going on. But one of my favorite players that came through Durham Bulls was B.J. Upton. I don't know if you know anything about baseball, but B.J. Upton came through Durham Bulls, and I think he eventually went to the Braves. If I'm not mistaken, but yeah, he was such a great player for us. Oh man, they couldn't stop him. They could not stop it. He did not last long in the minors. He didn't last long. They were like, yeah, we gotta get this kid up. So he was huge in our area. And even just me being, I wasn't a baseball player, although I did want to try it, but I never did because the I guess you could say the way the culture or the stigma was pushed is you played basketball or football as an African American, and where I'm from, that's really all we got handed was either a basketball or a football to throw around. We rode bicycles. I learned how to do my first somersault, backflip, all of that stuff off of a hill, all of the good stuff, running around playgrounds, everything. I was the outdoor kid. Me and my siblings, we were the outdoor children. Now I'll say the oldest three. The youngest one, he's like it's like a 11 or 12-year gap in between us. And so he was kind of one of the tech kids where he
Yeah.
sat in the house, and whether it was computer or that phone or video games, Xbox, PS5, whatever it was, he was that guy. And what's crazy is he's in the Air Force now doing stuff with cyber. So it worked out for him. So I can't say anything negative about it because he actually did something with it. You know what I mean? So that's awesome. I do. I appreciate that about him and using his brain, in a way that actually assists not just um, him, but the U.S. military and the U.S. soil. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
other than that, my family, like, I guess you say, like, immediate family, such as like aunts, uncles, and great aunts, great uncles, stuff like that. I do have a lot of military background in family. Now, as I got older, I wanted to pursue sports and potentially schooling, like engineering and stuff, because I wanted to go to school for computer or software engineering. I love computers. I'm a nerd. I always have been. So I kind of got that same trait as my brother. I just didn't lean on it because I like to be outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. When I came indoors, I was up all night playing games, which is why I didn't go to sleep on time and why my mom had to wake me up 2, 3 times in the morning. But uh, yes, I would want to initially go to uh, either North Carolina State University or North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University because those are the two best schools in North Carolina for engineering, and like literally to the point where a lot of major companies come to those two schools, especially A&T. They
Yeah.
have a huge engineering background and footprint. Uh, NC State is kind of more leaning towards the computer science. I'm not into that. It's a little boring. If you're like creative like me, I'm very creative, so I needed to make something. Like, my creative mindset wanted me to make software or create the next thing for computers, stuff like that. But anyway, when I did not make it into, academia out of high school, and not to say that I didn't have the GPA, I had a 3.4 GPA unweighted, so it's not to say I didn't have the knowledge, the skill set that, just to sure articulate intelligence. It wasn't to say anything about that. It was to say that there was literally an admission hiccup. Like literally, I got accepted at A&T, and I'm calling. I was so happy. Oh my gosh. Cause like I just told you, I wanted to go there. It wasn't just because they accepted me. I wanted to go to that school. And when they accepted me, I was like, oh, I got a letter. I'm like, I was so excited. I'm dancing around. And, my mom's happy. And you know how it is, especially back then. Facebook was bigger than Instagram and all the other ones. Like some of the other ones won't even hear. Like TikTok, not even the thing, stuff like that. But Facebook, I took to Facebook and I said, yes, I got accepted into A&T. And, everybody's, congratulating me from family, friends, uh, my friends from school, so classmates. All of us we're just congratulating each other. Oh, I'll be there too, so I can't wait. Things like that. Well, I called them because you have to go for freshman orientation, right? Well, I'm calling to off of the acceptance letter. Now, hear me clearly. This is off the acceptance letter. I didn't look this up on Google. I didn't go in the yellow pages for those who know what that is. I didn't do any of that. I was looking at the acceptance letter with their letterhead, my mailing address from them, so they mailed it to me. I didn't go get this from like an office or something. And I'm talking to the lady on the phone, and she's like, yeah, just give me your information and I'll look it up. So I told her my name and everything, and she didn't have anything. No, no, I don't see anything. I said, what do you mean you don't see anything? Like, are you blind? Yeah, and so she's like, no, no, and I didn't really say that, but I'm like, she was like, I don't see you in our database. And I was like, oh, hold on, maybe it's my name because it is spelled uniquely. And this is all a true story. So I spelled my name out for her because, as you know, Ron, my name is not the easiest, and so I spelled it out for her, and she's like, yeah, no, no, it's still not showing up. I said, what? And I look down and I'm just like looking at the paper. And I'm like, what? So who's out here playing games? you know, you know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, no worries. And I hung up the phone, but I hung up the phone and feeling defeated.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I was like, that was my next step. At
Yeah.
least I thought. And so I remember it like it was yesterday. My mom was standing over my right shoulder, or she comes in that doorway. We were living at my grandmother's house at this time, not the house that you see behind me. But we we were talking, and she's like, "What? So what did they say?" And I was like, "Yeah, she says she doesn't have any information on me." She's like, "What do you mean, no information? Do we need to send something?" I said, "No, like I'm not in their system." She was like, "How is that possible when you holding the paper with your name?" I said, I wondered the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me go back because I just saw something on Facebook this year about acceptance into that school and how many people apply. Now, I'm sure they update it every so often, and that was back in 2010 when I did that. So I'm pretty sure now they might get more students.
Mm-hmm.
So I just read a post where North Carolina A&T every single year receives about 50, anywhere from 50 to 55,000 applicants, and
Yeah.
they only accept 5,000.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's only 10%
Yeah.
that they're accepting. You know what I mean? So now when I, rewind back 15 years, I can say, oh shoot, that's why they didn't let me in. It
Yeah.
was a lot of people trying to get into school. That's what I was saying earlier. It's a very highly sought out school.
Yeah.
So it's slim pickings. If somebody's better than somebody else, hey, I'm sorry you didn't make the cut. That kind of thing. And you
Yeah.
don't understand it until later on down the road. But I actually pivoted really quickly because I was tired of working fast food, man. I have been working at Bojangles for 3 years. Anybody who knows the southeastern quadrant of the US and is slowly moving over, I know they just put a Bojangles in San Antonio, Texas, so it's slowly spreading, but we have to pump the brakes on it because some people don't like it. Because I also know that they were closing the ones in Jacksonville, Florida. So, and the only reason I know that is because my brother lives in that area. So, but I was working there for 3 years. That was my first job working at Bojangles, man. And I was fed up. I'm done with this. Like this is not for me anymore. and don't get me wrong, they tried to keep me by offering me a manager's position, an assistant manager. I said, I've seen y'all's hours. I don't want them.
Well,
And the pay might be okay, but it's not worth the hours, dude. I've seen somebody have to, because somebody, whatever the case might be in for the manager's position, but literally close the store at 1 or 2 a.m. and have to be right back there at 4.
yeah. Yeah. It's like we'll keep on. Let me take us forward here,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to talk about the accident, and I hope it's okay to talk about. But on May 5th, 2017, your life changed dramatically. Can you walk us through the events of that day and the immediate aftermath?
The events of that day. Again, May 5th, 2017, 8 years ago now. I was in the United States Air Force Reserves at this time. I did 4 years active duty and then I switched over. I didn't like the active duty lifestyle. Like I felt so burnt out in how they were using us.
Hmm.
And so I switched over in 2015. And then, so 2017, I was also going to college full time. So I was studying to get my degree because I actually wanted to be a pilot ultimately. And I was going to work that. And then while I was in school, this is how the business thing came about. So when I was in school, I was studying computer information systems. And so with me studying that, it took me through, a couple of different courses, and I came across website design and management. Oh man, dude, I told you I have a creative brain. So it clicked. I just wanted to do that, right? So now I have this business that I've started, and I'm doing it that day, May 5th. I was going to take photos of a business website that I'm managing. So I was going to take some shots of the outdoor because they needed to update it. It was so out of date, and I needed to update the pictures on the website. And then I had to go fly that. Well, I fly the next day, but I had to go down to the base that night. And so anyway, I am done taking the pictures, right? And I was on my motorcycle. And I know you're like, how in the world are you taking pictures and you're on a motorcycle? There's this thing called a book bag, man. You just throw it on your back. So I carry my tools in my backpack. And I went to do that. But from my apartment complex to the place where I went to take the pictures was only like a 10-minute ride. And on a motorcycle, as a motorcycle rider, that's nothing. So I wanted to ride just a little bit longer. And I went to this lake called Jordan Lake in North Carolina. From where I was to Jordan Lake was 30 minutes. And I said, oh, that'll be perfect because back would be about the same or if not more. I said, that'll be perfect. That'll be a nice ride. So I get out there. This is a very, very familiar place to me, by the way. It's not like an unknown charted territory. I didn't just go on my phone Googling where to go. No, I already knew this place. And so I'm very familiar with the area. So there was no surprises there. And I get there, no problem. Again, I have to go to work that night. So I was like, sitting there for a while, and then a car comes flying by, and it kind of startles me to check my watch. And I look at my watch. I was like, oh snap, I gotta go. And so I jump back on the bike, and I'm headed down Highway 751 here in North Carolina. And it's only two lanes: the lane I'm going in, and the lane that's coming past me. And you have driveways, you have intersections, you got all this little stuff that are along this road because people do live out here. Well, at an intersection, yes, with the street light, not just some random intersection. A silver Honda Accord pulls out in front of me, and I'm doing 55 miles an hour on a bike. I don't know if people really realize, but like when you're going that fast, I don't care if it's a car or a bike, it's not easy to slow down. Mm-hmm. It's really not. The faster you're going, the further the distance it takes for you to slow down. Now with a bike, it's even further because I don't have four tires, and they're not that wide. Right. So now if I hit the brake, I'm just gonna slide all the way until I hit you. Or if I lock up that front brake, I'm gonna flip off of it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So at this point in time, I basically just hit the car. I mean, I literally didn't have any other option, to be honest. That was either lay the car down and go underneath it or hit the car and flip over it. Now, I don't know how quick my brain was thinking, but that's all I can think of now, because I just know that I hit the car and I don't remember anything of it. The only reason I know something about this accident is because the people who told it to me and police report, because there were two witnesses. Not just the guy that I hit, but it was two cars behind him at the same intersection that put in the police report that they saw me coming, so they don't know why he didn't. So yeah, man, I end up in the hospital having to be life flighted to UNC Hospital in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I spent the next 2 months of existence, with one of them being in a medically induced coma. Yeah, man. So I was in a coma for a whole month while they did countless surgeries on me, literally from the top of my head. So how this these headphones are going across the top of my head,
Hmm.
they had to cut me open like that across the
Wow.
top of my head because I had so much swelling on my brain. So they had to cut me open to relieve the swelling. So literally from that point all the way down to my right foot, I've been cut on, man. The only thing that was not cut on were my arms. That's
Wow.
it. I've got
Wow.
clavicle cut. I got my spine, my face, my both legs, right foot, man, everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
man.
that yeah, that's I can only I can't imagine, and
Right.
thank God you're here to tell me about it. But you have a really powerful mantra, and I was doing some research before you and I, decided to do this, and I was really trying to understand kind of how somebody who goes through something so traumatic can have such a great and powerful and amazing outlook on things, and I just applaud that. But you have this mantra that you go by, which is, "I may have lost my sight, but I did not lose my vision." Man, that's powerful. How
Yeah,
did you
man.
cultivate this perspective?
So it was from being at church. I was talking to, well, actually, I wasn't talking to nobody at first. I was trying to get off the drums because I play the drums, as you can see behind me.
Yeah.
I still play the drums at church. So I was getting off the drums after rehearsal, I believe it was. This was years ago before the pandemic, and I was walking around just trying to navigate my way. Nobody's helping me, by the way. It's just me and my cane, my white cane. And I'm navigating the church because I've been in this church all my life, all 33 years of it. So I know this church like the back of my hand, you know? And so I'm navigating the church and I'm going across the front. As I'm walking over, somebody come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I just got to ask you a question." I said, "Hey, what's up?" They were like, "How do you do it?" I'm like, "Do what?" Like, you gotta be more specific than that, you know? Um, and she was like, I see you every Sunday, Wednesday, and every time I see you, you're not complaining, you're smiling, and I just feel like I should be doing way more in life." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? Why do you feel like you should be doing way more in life?" She's like, "Because I just feel some days I don't even feel like getting up to do stuff. And then I'll see you and I'm like, well, what the heck? If he can do something and he's way worse off, how the heck am I gonna complain?"
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's one way to think of it, yes. But I also need you to understand what you feel is valid. So
Hmm.
don't diminish it. But just realize that that is valid, what you're feeling. You just need to figure out where it's coming from. And that's how you start to target things. In my book, Don't Focus on Why Me, there's a chapter called Embrace and Confront the Issue. That tells everything that that I'm speaking on right now. So if you want to check out more of what I'm saying, go check out that chapter in my book. But I was just trying to tell her that if you sit there and just be like, "Oh, I'm depressed," but you never figure out why, you're just gonna be depressed.
Hmm.
You'll never get out, you know. And even if you do, it'll resurface tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so that's what I was explaining to her. But when I said that, that was the first time I ever said that quote. By the way, I said, I might have lost my sight in this accident. I didn't lose my vision. And she just broke out in tears, man.
Yeah. It's powerful, man. It is a powerful message. Like
Yeah.
when I read it, I was same way,
Well,
choked
see,
up.
the thing is, what came from that? Because some people are like, well, sight, vision, ain't wordplay. I'm like, yeah, but how I view it is I might have lost my sight, but I didn't lose my vision. Vision is mental to me. You
Hmm.
have to think through visions. What is a vision board? Something you want to, goals, things, aspirations, admirations, all these things that you're looking to get to. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Hmm.
how I view it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's phenomenal, and it's a motivating and powerful statement for all of us to listen to. So I want to go kind of into this next chapter. I was going to talk about your book a little bit as well,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
before we get into that, you founded Amey Motivation, and this is kind of a really important initiative, and I want to just understand what the core mission is. Like, what was the goal? What motivated you to do this? But really, what is this? What is Amey Motivation all about?
Oh man, so that's kind of loaded. So, and I'm not gonna, make it long drawn out, but I'm gonna tell you why it's loaded. It's loaded because I didn't want nothing to do with this.
Hmm.
To be a speaker? Nah, not me. Not me. Now I can do acting because I'm a different person. But as a speaker, I have to be me.
Hmm.
There's difference. And so when I first thought about it, I said, what? Man, y'all tripping. like, no joke. Everybody that brought it to me, hey, man, come on. I want you to do it. I don't know what you're talking about. Even when they were telling me to write the book. Now, the book mindset was, it was a little, I won't say easier, but it was a little more, okay, I think I can do that. But after I did, man, listen, after I did my first speech to my, at my high school that I graduated from, dude, doors open. Okay.
Hmm.
That was when everything happened. All it takes is one time, man,
Mm-hmm.
for you to get something going. And so after that first part, when I guess you could say broke the ice, man, I took off. Like I was running before this pandemic, and then they put me back at a crawl. When COVID hit, it put me back at a crawl. But that is where business minded people come in, and you have to learn how to pivot. But going back to the mission that you're asking me about. So the mission of Amey Motivation, because it's kind of pertaining to me as well, is to make someone who feels less than, like basically less than what you were. So less than, make them feel like either better or the same as what they were. And how do I do that? I do that by, like I was just telling you that one story of just a few minutes ago. Your feelings are valid.
Hmm.
What you might be feeling right now about yourself, whether it's an accident, whether it's marriage, divorce, whatever, you might have lost a loved one, whatever it is, whatever hardship, adversity you're dealing with, all of the emotions that come with that stuff are valid. It's okay to not be okay. But how do we move forward? That's the key. That's
Yeah.
what my mission is.
Yeah, I like it. Well, in your book that you mentioned, and I'll put the link for everyone so that they can get it, but you talk about this concept of don't focus on the why me, obviously the title of it, but what are the central messages that, like, if you were to boil it down to like two or three things that you hope your readers take away from it, what are those central messages or themes that you're hoping to get out of that?
Well, that the title is the first lesson. Don't
Yeah.
focus on why me. Because when you're in that why me mentality, that's like a victimized mentality. You got to get out of that because if you sit in that, you'll really be blaming everybody else for what's going on, and the whole purpose of me even speaking, I don't care if it's a podcast, I don't care if it's a stage, Zoom, whatever, is to teach people how to move forward in life.
Hmm.
That's it, because that's all I want to do. All I want to do is move forward. How that presents itself, I'll figure that out when I get to there, get to that step, And so that's number one. Number two, I want you to learn the lessons that life has taught you. Because when I'm writing in my book, I basically write letters to the readers. And it's at the end, I finish it with a lesson that I learned in that chapter. So we should learn lessons throughout life. Hey, man, if you burned your hand on that stove, if you do it more than once, that's your fault. You know what I mean? Because you should have learned the first time. That's hot. You get what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
is just as simple as that. You should learn from a lesson. And so another thing, lastly, what I'll add is we have to learn to be vulnerable in life.
Mm.
What do I
Yeah.
mean by that? Well, Mr. Kijuan Amey here, when he went into the military, that was the one thing they were not teaching you to do, is to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
That was like the main thing. We don't do that around here. Suck it up. I don't know if you ever heard that phrase, suck it up, buttercup.
Yep.
that is widely used in the military. And so I had, when it came to writing my book and speaking, but the book first, because I had to put this on paper and I really wanted to pour out into it so you could feel where I was coming from. And so I had to now become vulnerable in order to write this amazing book.
Mm.
And when you're not even just a CEO, when you're a father, a mother, a sister, a brother, whatever you are, a grandparent, you you have to show signs of vulnerability in order to get people. For example, if you're your father to a son, sometimes you have to show that vulnerable side to get them to understand why you're so hard on them.
Hmm.
Son, I'm so hard on you right now because you will understand this lesson that I'm trying to teach you later. It's going to show up somewhere in your life. And that can go either way, mother to daughter, anything. Uh grandparent to the mother to the daughter. You know, it can be lessons of generation from generations.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, for people who have any challenges, and obviously you have obviously an extreme where you had lost your sight, which but there are people who are probably facing kind of like the woman that stopped you in the church. Everyone has these unforeseen challenges that they're facing, no matter how small or how large those are. What are some of the things that you tell them? What advice would you offer them so that they can help find strength, purpose, so that they can move forward?
I'll give you two. The first one that I'll give you is very, very simple. Easier said than done, but it's very simple. Don't give up.
Mm. Yeah.
Hear me clearly. Don't give up. Why do I say that is easier said than done? We all know because you've heard people unalive themselves because they wanted to give up and they gave into it because it's the easy route.
Yeah. True.
But what I want to preface here is when you do that, when you commit to that, that not only ends your life, but it affects everybody else around you.
Hmm.
We think we're just affecting us. Oh, I'm ending it all for me. And that's it. They won't have to worry about me no more. Yes, they will. They're going to wonder what could they have done to help you? Could they have prevented this? It's going to be so many thoughts because they're still living with this lasting effect.
Mm.
And then, when I think about that, I'm going to give you a visual. So if you were to take just a rock, a simple pebble, and drop it in a pond, you see the ripple effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by that. You are the rock that unalived yourself. You drop it in that water, which is your community, and
Mm-hmm.
now the ripples hit the community.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Well,
Now the second thing I'll bring up
yep.
is don't allow people to put labels on you. What do I mean by that? I'm glad you asked, Ron. I'm glad you asked. So I heard a quote once it said, my situation does not define who I am. I define who I am.
Mm.
Just let that sink in for a second. My situation, me being blind, having traumatic brain injury, PTSD, spinal cord, all this stuff that they told me I have does not define me. I define me. Every single day I'm defining or redefining myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot, and powerful. Uh, well, look, I've seen all the different things that you have going on. You have more energy than most. Let's just say. But are there? And I'll share all of the links to your book and all the great things you have going on in the episode release. But are there any upcoming projects maybe that I don't know about, or goals that you're excited about, or things that our listeners can really just follow along and supporting you in the journey of what you're doing.
Well, right now I'm currently in travel mode. Like this is kind of where I relax a little bit and just travel. But I do have a speakers competition coming up in October in Rochester, New York. I'm excited about it. There's going to be some great speakers there, and we will duel it out. It's going to be best man or woman standing. It's amazing. I love doing stuff like that because what does that show me is that first off, we all should be working for some kind of, not necessarily to say the award is what you're working for, but to say that iron sharpens iron.
Hmm.
If I'm just sitting here comparing myself to me, that's cool, right? But if I go get on a stage with somebody else and I just heard somebody else go, ooh, they're tough, you know. And it's not to say that you want to steal what they do, their techniques, whatever it is. It's to say that does yours match up?
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't want to take anybody's job. We could actually collaborate. Maybe what you say actually works well with what I'm doing. You never know what comes from that stuff. So I'm excited about that. I really am.
Yeah, I get it. Well, listen, Kijuan, your journey, from adversity to empowerment, like you really are truly inspiring, and keep doing what you're doing because it is awesome to watch and be a part of. And I just really am excited. You've got this unwavering spirit and commitment, and it just uplifts others. And it really is, I think, the essence of this show, which is projecting grandeur. And I mean, you're projecting your new grandeur, and like you said, it's all about the outlook and perspective you put in. So I just want to really applaud you and thank you. And I'll make sure that our audience knows how to get a hold of you, and I'll make sure that they have the link to get your book on Amazon, which I'm excited to read myself. So appreciate you joining the show today, Kijuan.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, listen, everybody else, please do follow Kijuan. Listen to some of his speeches online. He is an inspiration to all of us. And until next time, remember, challenges may shape us, but they do not define us. So keep on projecting that grandeur. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.